It looks like Spain is going to recognize a Palestinian statehood, as well as questioning the Israeli government on the murder of the 7 aid workers. It seems like very few leaders are accepting the uh, excuse that the Israeli government is using to justify or throw under the rug the murders of the 7 people. You got Poland, who is seeking justice, Australia, who is seeking justice, and now Spain, who is questioning the Israeli government on their murders.
And Spain has called on Israel to clarify the details surrounding the death of the 7 aid workers. This comes as reports emerge in Spanish media that Spain will recognize Palestinian statehood by July. Here's Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez on a trip to Jordan.
I wonder if the Israeli government is going to call the Spanish government anti-Semitic for wanting to recognize Palestinian statehood, uh, because I would not be surprised if they did that.
They died doing what this NGO has been devoted to for years, to deliver food in devastated areas. I hope and I demand that the Israeli government clears up the circumstances of this brutal attack that has taken the lives of 7 aid workers who were simply offering help.
All the leaders so far that have spoken about these aid workers have called them heroes. Even Bibi Netanyahu, the PM of Israel, has called these people heroes. So the to do nothing for to if nothing happens to the people who murder these people, then that means it doesn't matter what happens in war. It doesn't matter if you have a protected status or not. It means the Israeli government can murder you and get away with it. And that means that it doesn't matter anywhere in the world, international law. I mean, the fact that the Israeli government has been able to violate international law so many times and get away with it, this kind of shows what does international law mean.
Our correspondent Jack Perrick has the latest from Brussels. Jack, tell us more about what we heard there from the Spanish Prime Minister.
Well, I think it's really interesting. What we're seeing now is European leaders like Pedro Sanchez coming out. They are clearly unhappy and they want the answers from the Israeli government. We did hear already from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but he's not asking for answers. He said he expects and demands the answers. The man who started...
Yeah, the murder of the 7 aid workers has finally gotten pretty much every leader but a couple to see that the Israeli government is just indiscriminately killing people, and there needs to be something done about it because them just constantly lying isn't excusable anymore.
The World Central Kitchen, the aid organization whose convoy was hit and killed these 7 aid workers, is owned or was started by a Spanish-American chef called Jose Andres. And I think what we're seeing now is, we've long heard European and Western leaders supporting Israel's right to defend itself, and has continued to say that since the October the 7th attack. But now what we're seeing is perhaps the patience starting to wear a little bit thin. I think that's my read on how Pedro Sanchez delivered that.
Well, when it's your citizens getting murdered, the right to self-defense, or the excuse the right to self-defense, becomes when you're murdering aid workers. And it wasn't just like a Palestinian aid worker being killed, but it was British people being killed, an American being killed, Canadian being killed, um, a person from Poland, and I think a person from France was also killed in this attack. Also an Australian. The Australian PM wants justice, and the Israeli government just saying, "Oh, it was a mistake. Our our military is incompetent and cannot recognize between a civilian and Hamas," is not the excuse they're going to accept.
Press conference when he arrived in Jordan at a refugee camp for Palestinians on the outskirts of Amman.
Now, Pedro Sanchez has also said that he wants Spain to recognize Palestinian statehood this year. What exactly would that mean?
Yeah, that's right. Ahead of his visit to the Middle East, he gave an informal discussion to the Spanish press, but it's widely reported by most of the big Spanish newspapers and agencies and broadcasters that he said to them that he would expect that Spain would recognize the state of Palestine by July at the latest. There is a pressure, social pressure, political pressure within Spain for the Spanish government to do that. It would also be in the run-up to the European Parliament elections, which are coming in June, at which Pedro Sanchez will hope to do well, and we'll see this as something of a campaign issue. It's interesting, this one, because as a European Union country, the EU broadly supports the two-state solution between Israel and a state of Palestine, but it doesn't have.
Well, then all those European states that supported two-state solution should start recognize a Palestinian state. Would make it harder for the Israeli government to genocide the Palestinians or go into the West Bank and, kidnap people, because then they would be a recognized state with recognized authority and power to defend themselves. And the Israeli government wouldn't want to have to fight the entire European Union.
Have a position for each of the 27 EU countries to recognise the state of Palestine unilaterally. So different countries are taking different positions on this.
Do you think different EU countries could individually follow suit in recognizing the Palestinian state?
I think so. There's a big discussion about this. Some of them already do. Some countries like Bulgaria and Czechia and.
Why does it have to be like majority of the world have to recognize a state as a state? I mean, if these people want a state, that's all that should be needed for these people to be recognized as a state. I mean, the moment, the United States recognizes another state as a state, it automatically happens. But what, one state in the EU says so, and they got to get the agreement from the entire world? No, everybody, most like 153 nations in the world already support Palestine. Just give them the authority of statehood.
Cyprus and Hungary, Poland, they actually recognised the state of Palestine before they joined the European Union. Sweden has done so since, but there are many countries that are starting to consider it. We know that Belgium is considering it, Ireland and Malta and Slovenia, Spain probably being the loudest country in the official recognition and start.
Nice. So there's several nations that recognize a Palestinian statehood. They need to do a little bit more to help Palestinians protect themselves against Israel. That will help solidify their statehood.
Starting diplomatic relations with a state of Palestine. But the big question is, and the big diplomatic and economic power obviously comes from Germany, which is unlikely to do so unless there was clear sort of acceptance for that by
I mean, who really cares what Germany agrees with at the moment? All they're supporting is genocide because they're afraid of being considered anti-Semitic for not supporting a genocide.
the Israelis, and at the moment it doesn't look like Germany would do so. France potentially as well could, but at the moment, like we say, some of those countries, and I think what we will see is Spain and those other countries I mentioned, push ahead to try and recognise the state of Palestine.